Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by therapist, empowerment strategist, and author, Kerie Logan. Kerie has been a therapist and empowerment strategist for over 20 years. She helps people live their best lives. She's been helping people all around the world. In 2004, she was voted Best Coach of the Year and has been voted for 14 consecutive years Best Hypnotherapist. So we're going to be talking to her about everything that she's up to and how she helps people live their best life. So Kerie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Curtis. I'm very blessed to be here.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm animal lover, and I really like supporting people, like you said previously, in living a better life because so many of us get stuck to our stories and get stuck in this ego mindset where we judge and we complain and we criticize and we think that our stories define us and it's part of our identity, but it's just creating havoc and misery and it's not allowing you to shed it. And so pretty much that's what I do is my nickname's the pinhole of light. And what I do is I look at what your story is and all of that, and I shine my light and my perspective into it. And I help you have the courage to shift your consciousness to where you can see both sides of the perspective, where you can have compassion and wisdom and understanding and even forgiveness. And it's a beautiful thing to see people peel away the layers of that story that they thought molded them into who they thought they were, because there's so much more than that. And it's really liberating when someone gives themselves that gift, because then the story isn't clinging anymore. And when you know you're truly free, you can see that person that hurt you or wounded you on social media or even publicly, and it doesn't bother you. You don't take anything they do personally. You realize it had nothing to do with you. It was just your investment in that story of wanting to cling to the pain and cling to those memories. And they just make us miserable human beings. So I really get great satisfaction out of seeing people awaken and set themselves free.
Well, how did you get into therapy and being an empowerment strategist and all the things that you currently do?
Well, that's an interesting story. I actually made a YouTube video about it, and there was a time in my life, like most people, we do what we think we should do or what we're told to do by society, parents, our culture. It could be religious people. And I was in corporate America, like a lot of other people. And when 9/11 happened, the economy plummeted and I got laid off and I was running out of my second round of unemployment benefits and I was going to be homeless. I was a single mom and I was going to be homeless. And I went to see a spiritual friend of mine and she said, "You've done everything you need to do here in Oregon. You're going to go back home to California and the perfect job is waiting there for you. What you are meant to do and destined to do is waiting there for you." And I thought, I can't do that. I don't get child support. I can't afford to move back there. It's too expensive. And he said, no, the perfect job is waiting for you and it will be handed to you. And like most people, I didn't want to believe her. And I fought it. And the state could only help me put my stuff in storage. And I was not going to live in my car or any of that with my daughter. All my family was in California. So I took a leap of faith, which takes courage. And I called a family friend in the Sacramento area and I told her my situation. Can I stay with you? And she said yes. And so, long story short, about a week and a half later or so, I got a call where someone wanted to interview me and meet me for a position. And all they said was they wanted someone that had a positive mental attitude and wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And so I ended up walking into the front of the building of Positive Changes Hypnosis. And I was like, this is cool. I know about hypnosis, I know about meditation, I have a background in it. I fully believe in it. And when I sat in the conference room with this guy, I had this fat portfolio of like 3 inches thick. Oh, I've done this and this and this. And do you want to see my portfolio? And he said, no. He's like, you already got the job. I knew I was going to hire you the minute I read your resume. It's yours. And so she was correct. And what made it even more fascinating is my district manager at the time was one of the brothers that started that company. It was Michael Porter and Patrick Porter. And I became best friends with Michael. And when he learned about my spiritual side and what I do, he said, I've met hundreds of hypnotherapists, but I've never met anyone like you. And your spiritual side is like the cherry on top. You are too good for this place and you should be self-employed. And so, like most people, I loved what he said. You know, it fed my ego, but I was afraid. I was afraid. Well, the universe gave me that calling, of what I'm going to share next. So, what Michael did for me is he gave me $500 worth of software to start my business online, which I called Empowered Within. But then a week before Thanksgiving, I got in a disagreement with the receptionist, and she was the owner's sister. And I went to my manager and I said, I think she's trying to get me fired. And that's the same year they gave me that award. Seriously, the same year they gave me that award. I said, I think she's trying to fire me. And she said, yes, she actually is. And here's your final check. And I was like, what? I'm the best one here. I've got like 3 months of clients booked. You can't do this to me. It's the day before Thanksgiving. And she said, quote, she's family and you're not, and you have to go. And so I went home and I prayed and I was like, God, if this is my calling, like everyone says, give me a sign that is so clear I can't mistake it because I love what I do. And I use my intuitive abilities to do hypnotherapy. And so when I finished praying, I called that woman that got me fired and I left her a voicemail and thanked her. And I said that I will look back at this as a blessing in disguise. So thank you for giving me this gift. I forgive you. I understand. I'm making peace with this. And the very next day, a client that became a friend came over for Thanksgiving and she had a card and she said, I am so sorry this happened to you. And I feel compelled to do this. I've been sitting on this nest egg and I want to give you this gift. And inside the Thanksgiving card was a check for $10,000. And she looked at me and she said, I want you to start your own business. And when I told Michael Porter what happened, he said, Kerie, you were so loyal and dedicated to us. The universe had to kick you in the butt to make you leave because you would not have willingly done it on your own. Yeah. And now I help people all over the globe, different backgrounds, religions, ages. It's a beautiful thing, Curtis, and I truly love what I do.
Well, definitely congratulations on that. And You definitely are doing a good job at everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Let's talk about a trauma bonding relationship. What is a trauma bonding relationship, and why do people need to be trauma informed, as you say?
Yes, a lot of people. So let's say you had a traumatic experience and you're sitting in a bar, drinking your sorrows away, and someone comes over and strikes a conversation. And like most people, you tell your story because you're invested in your story. And that person can relate. So you both start relating your trauma bonding story. And if you form a friendship, you are forming a trauma bonding relationship. A good example is a lot of men sometimes are conditioned, and I hate to use this word, groomed in some way to be the white knight. Oh, I need to save this woman. I need to be the savior for her. You're entering into a trauma bonding relationship. So, what people really should be doing is when someone is sharing a trauma story, you need to really stop and ask them, well, what have you done for yourself to find relief? What have you thought about going to therapy and getting yourself free from this trauma that is hurting you day after day after day after day? What are you doing to be free of this? And if you really care about a person, you would say, because I care about you and your happiness, your peace of mind matters to me because you're important, and I know deep down inside there is goodness within you. I want you to give this gift to yourself. Can you do that? And that would probably shock the hell out of a person saying, because you're being real. You're not agreeing with them and you're not disagreeing with them. You're saying, hey, what have you done to try to find a solution? Because all the answers lie within us. Because that experience, that traumatic experience, had a lesson in there for you to learn. So, what's the lesson? Is the lesson to recognize the signs of toxic people so you know what is gaslighting, what's stonewalling, what's projection, what's baiting, all of that? What's the triangulation, how people, I mean, when you educate yourself about the toxic behaviors, when it becomes present and evident in your life, you can look at it and go, oh, that's what they're doing. And you don't take it personal. It's kind of like you're detached from it and you're seeing it for what it really is. It's their insecurities, not yours. It's them feeling powerless and not you.
Let's take a quick break.
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.
Well, let's talk about trauma types. What are the 17 types of trauma that people experience every year?
Well, that's a great question. I don't have my full list in front of me, but I will tell you the ones that I can get off the top of my head. The one most common is, I believe, accidents. Like you fell down, you broke your leg. It could be sports injuries. There's sports injuries. There's natural disasters like the fires that happened down in LA. COVID. Everyone across the planet was traumatized by COVID. Okay. We got to be honest about that. There is, you can, like, if you get really bad food poisoning, that could be a traumatic experience for you. Witnessing, there's indirect trauma as well as direct trauma. So let's say you were in a car accident, that's direct trauma. But if you witness the car accident and you're having nightmares and you're afraid to be by a semi truck because you watched a semi truck, you know, in a horrific accident, that's indirect. There is domestic violence. There's child abuse. There is, you know, like the Great Depression was traumatizing. When we had famines, that was traumatizing. There is substance abuse. That can be, you know, traumatizing. There's many different ways a person can get traumatized. And why I want people to be trauma informed is when you see them acting what you would call madness or crazy and you don't understand it, that's the trauma speaking. And if you can have what I call 4D human consciousness, when you can have patience and courage and kindness, compassion, you know, wisdom to recognize this person's really hurting inside, it it gives you mercy towards them instead of immediately judging them and saying, "Oh God, they're bat, you know, I'm going to say a bad word, batshit crazy." Instead of doing that and wanting to avoid them and not talk to them, your heart is compassionate and open, and you're like, this person's really crying for help. How can I support this person? Because the I believe in everything happens for a reason. So that person collided with you for a reason. What is that person there to teach you? And what are you there to teach that person? Because all of us are students and all of us are teachers. So that's how I want people to really be trauma informed. So then we don't traumatize those people by our behaviors because they already are traumatized because we don't understand.
Well, let's talk about narcissists. How was a narcissist created, and is it possible for a narcissist to change?
Oh yeah. Um, narcissists, and that's a really cool thing is one night I was lying in bed and whether you want to call it angels, higher consciousness, you know, source, universe, whatever, I heard, do you know you humans create narcissists? They're not born that way. And like most people, I was like, what? This is crazy. What? What? And I heard, look it up. And when I looked it up, it's true. It's created out of three parenting styles and out of trauma, out of child abuse, and out of bullying. And then the parenting styles is a an authoritarian parent, a absent parent, that would be like a CEO that has lots of money and they just throw stuff, but then a neglectful parent. And that's where the parent is very self-absorbed and doesn't want to spend time with the kid. The child is a nuisance. And the messages that they unconsciously receive, like, I'm not good enough. I don't matter. I'm insignificant. That creates them to be stuck in their survival brain. Their cortex brain, their frontal lobe cortex brain, develops differently because of that trauma that they experienced. And so I've done presentations before on helping people understand narcissists, how their brain is, but I wanted people also to know that this is what happens when they slip. And the beautiful thing is, every time I've done my talks of how to communicate with them, I've had narcissists come up to me and thank me, literally thank me for helping them better understand themselves. And every single one of them has said the same exact thing, that they feel when they are slipping out of their rational cortex brain into the lizard brain. They can feel that shift where they go down into anger, down into being defensive and guarded, and they lash out. And so what I would advise all of them to do is imagine yourself at a crossroad. And if you really care about that person, say to them, "Hey, I feel myself slipping right now, and I really care about you. And so what I need to do is I need to step away and I need to calm down because I don't want to say something or do something that is going to damage this friendship, relationship, marriage, whatever it is." You're being the better person. And that's the first step into 4D human consciousness, the courage to do something different. And then one gentleman that I did help that was extremely narcissist is I told him, on your phone, because he hated his boss and his boss was just he called him the devil. I said, on your phone, make a recording of videos of your daughter where you see that light in her eyes and the smile in her face, and videos of your wife and you're laughing and you're playing. And every time you step away, I want you to watch those little mini clip videos, even just 5 minutes, and say to yourself in your mind, I'm doing this for us. I am doing this for us. And just say that for a minute or two, and you'll feel that relief. You're letting go the ego. You're letting go the need to be right. You're letting go your anger, your hatred, and you're rising up to neutrality, where it's like, this isn't about me. This is about them. And I'm going to be the better person for my family, for my kids, for my wife, for my sanity. And so, yes, a narcissist can change. I know a lot of people say, no, they can't. But here's the key thing. Anybody can change if they're willing to put action into it. Because your words have to match your actions. And that's the beautiful thing, is he really wanted to change. And so he took the action steps to doing it.
Well, in the green room, you were telling me about the ascension process. So explain to the listeners what the ascension process is.
Well, the ascension process is where we are letting go the area of 3D human consciousness. We are sort of silencing the ego and realizing that we are worth a lot more. And instead of being stuck in separation, we're looking for unity and oneness. And I mean unity and oneness with everything, because everything we see around us is created by source or created by God. And some people hate that word, have a hard time with that word, God. But we all are created by the same source, by the same creator. And so when you move up into 4D human consciousness, that's what I call maturity and becoming an adult. You're having the courage to go within and explore all of your stories, all of your painful memories, all the things that trigger you, and you look at it from a higher perspective. You look at it through the eyes of neutrality, of permitting yourself to see both sides of the equation. You're being optimistic and you trust that you can do it, and you're compassionate with yourself. You're accepting yourself. You're forgiving yourself and others, and you're creating that wisdom and that understanding. That's all 4D human consciousness. And it has been proven by Dr. David Hawkins through the map of human consciousness that all of our thoughts and emotions have a vibrational set point. So that is the frequency range of 200 to 400. The ascension process is when we achieve 5D human consciousness, and that vibrates at 500 to 1,000. And that is where you are one with love. And I like to say God is love. If you've ever experienced, and this is going to sound weird, Curtis, but if anyone has ever taken any kind of drugs, like even just say alcohol or cannabis or mushrooms, you feel that vibrational shift of going out of 3D to where none of that garbage matters. You feel neutral, you feel at peace. So when you achieve 5D human consciousness, you feel love and gratitude and peace and enlightenment. And it's a beautiful, beautiful feeling, Curtis. It's amazing. Your whole reality shifts. And that's why I created Master the Upper Rooms, because in October 2023, I had a huge spiritual awakening about human consciousness, and I was shown these steps going all the way up to what we would call the kingdom of heaven. And the kingdom of heaven is not a place, it's a state of being. It's a state of consciousness where you are one with your creator, and that you are the presence of love and the presence of peace with everything on this planet. And it was a beautiful thing. And I was being called, by our creator, I want you to teach this for humanity because it is part of the ascension process. And so that's why I'm here, Curtis.
All right. So, you also deal with, kids with autism and parenting and stuff like that, and PDA and all that good stuff. So, share anything that you want to share, as far as that, because I have a son with autism. He's high functioning.
And I have a son too that is very high functioning. And I like to say sometimes I feel his autism is a superpower, because everyone is different. Some are great with numbers and math. Some are amazing with music. Some are amazing in writing or painting or artwork. Or even languages. Like my son has taught himself like over, I think, 12 different languages. He knows how to play music by ear. He loves classical music. When we're listening to the classical station, he'll be like, "Oh, this is so and so in D minor." And I'm like, "What?" But he's right on. What does create PDA is and this is my theory, is the attachment style changes. So most children have a secure attachment with a parent. And what happened with my kiddo is, on the father's side, and he was a great teacher, he didn't want to accept his autism. He wanted him to be normal. And I'm like, there is no such thing as normal. No such thing. And so he was a very kind of, and we conflicted on parenting styles because he wanted to be more authoritarian. And if you know anything about ABA, that's an authoritarian approach, which will create PDA, because it changes the child's attachment style from secure to anxious to then disorganized. And everyone that I've kind of talked to or interviewed that does have PDA says, yes, I have a disorganized attachment style. And that's because they were forced to try to be normal over and over and over again, that it broke their trust in society, their trust in parents, their trust in the world and people that are there to help them. And I know everyone's attachment style can change and go back. I have a very secure attachment with my son, but my son, if he's around his father, it's direct, immediately goes to disorganized, immediately, because he doesn't trust him and he can't be himself. So he masks and pretends that, everything is fine when he's really hurting inside. And he just wants his dad to love him and accept him and embrace him for who he is. And his dad can't. And his dad's, yes, is a narcissist. So, and it's hard. And why I say he's my teacher is I have a history, generational history of narcissism. My great grandmother was a narcissist. My grandfather was a narcissist. My dad was a narcissist. I had a child with someone that was narcissistic. And so by getting all that awareness, I was able to set myself free from generations and generations of that. Because it has been scientifically proven we can store up to 7 generations of trauma in our DNA. And so I set that free for myself. And so now I totally appreciate the gift that my son's father gave me. I do. And I look at our child is a gift. Even though he's different, he's a gift and he's a blessing. And he's taught me so much. He's taught me patience.
Let's take a quick break.
If you're a podcast host or someone wanting to be interviewed on podcasts as a guest, visit podmatch.com. Podmatch automatically connects ideal podcast guests and hosts together for interviews. We always say it works just like a dating app, but instead of connecting you for dates, it connects you for podcast interviews. Podmatch has connected over 85,000 guests and hosts together for interviews that listeners love, all while saving you countless hours of administrative work through built-in automations. If you're ready to level up your podcast interviews on either side of the mic, start today by visiting podmatch.com.
Well, tell the listeners about your book, because you're also an author. Tell us about your book and what listeners can expect when they read it and where they could get it.
Yes, so I've actually written 2 books. And I've just started coming out with this. The first book I wrote was in 2012, and it's called Affirming and Focusing on Living a Better Life. And I woke up one morning and Spirit was saying, you're going to write this book, and here's the table of contents. And I went to the computer and I typed it out. And then it was like, you're going to talk about the ego, our emotions. You're going to break it all down to help people understand how we are manifestors and how we are creators. And I channeled that whole book in I think it was 3 months or something. I channeled, did that book, and it was fabulous. And the next book, and you can get that on Amazon and also on my website. Then the next book I wrote, and I have a podcast that goes with it, is The Undetected Narcissist. My pen name is Angela Meyer. And that podcast I did for 3 years, and it still does very, very well, even though I don't put a lot into it. And why I wrote that book was in my healing process, I couldn't find anyone that told their story from start to finish. And we're storytellers. That's how we learn. And so I was guided by above to write it, but write it coming from the perspective of wisdom, love, compassion, forgiveness, and understanding. And that it was not easy, but I did it. And the whole podcast is about bringing wisdom, compassion, and understanding about toxic people, about narcissism, about shame and family secrets, the shame spiral. It's all about that, to help people, to really, really help people. Because when you're in the dark and you don't understand the behavior someone is doing, we take it personal and we get wounded. And I wanted to share that with the world. And that book's on Amazon as well.
Okay, well, tell us about any upcoming projects that you're working on that listeners need to be aware of.
I'm actually working on a 3rd book. And it's going to be interesting because the way I'm being led to do this one, because I'm wrapping up season 1 of Master the Upper Rooms, probably by the end of March, first week of April, it's from a spiritual perspective of creating a roadmap for people so they can let the ego go and really find peace within themselves and to just shift their whole consciousness. I've had a few talks with some friends about it, and uh, I have some really good feelings. I'm like all my work, I'm just gonna allow, what do you want me to say? And I just sit in front of the keyboard and I just type. I listen and I type. How do you want to spin this? What do you want to say? And so I'm really looking forward to writing it. And it's going to be a story. It's not going to be like a self-help book or anything like that. It's going to be similar to Celestine Prophecies, is what I keep getting the sense of, is because there was so much wisdom within that book, but it's going to be written in that same style. So people can really look inside themselves and go, oh, that's that. And instead of self-help, because as you know, Curtis, some people, when they hear self-help, they're like, oh, I don't need that crap. And they walk away when really they do. So yeah, it's going to be in that approach.
Okay, well, so listeners can keep up with everything that you're up to. Throw out your contact info.
Yes. So anyone can find me. It's easy. My first name is spelled very differently. It's Kerie, last name Logan. If you just Google that, I'm on Insight Timer, the meditation app. I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. My website is Empowered Within, and the other one is Master the Upper Rooms. So those are the places people can find me at. And if you, and there's lots of free stuff on there. So if anyone, let's say, wants a free consultation talk, we can talk for about 15, 20 minutes. So you get a sense of who I am and how I work. And I've done those little 15-minute things with people, and a lot of them are like, I've been in therapy for years and you just nailed me in 10 minutes. How do you do that? I use my intuition. I'm very good at what you call reading people and picking up and really listening to what's going to help this person get unstuck.
We'll close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if that was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
Well, I'd say the last final thought would be the rules for being human. Have you ever heard about that, Curtis?
Yes, I have heard about the rules for being human.
Okay, good. Because a lot of people don't know that. So the first rule is you will receive a body. The second rule is you will learn lessons. The third is there are no mistakes, only lessons. The fourth one is a lesson is repeated until it is learned. 5 is learning lessons does not end. 6 is there is no better than here, and I say now. And number 7 is others are merely mirrors of you. 8 is what you make of your life is up to you. And 9 is the answer lies inside of you. And some people say that, there's even 10, that you'll forget all these rules, but there are these rules. So I say when anyone triggers you or you start to take something personal and you recognize it's your ego kicking in, that's your time to be self-aware and say, hey, what's going on? Go within. Don't look at it as a problem. Look at it as an opportunity to explore and get answers that will give you peace of mind and set you free. So that's it, Curtis.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to check out Kerie Logan. Go pick up that book. Check out everything that she's up to. Do that free consultation. Follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible. Kerie has a lot of passion, lots of knowledge for what she does, and she just wants to help as many people as possible. Jump on your favorite podcast app, check out the show, leave us a review, follow us, share it to as many people as possible. If you have any guests or suggestion topics, Curtis Jackson 1978 at att.net is the place to send them. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. This would not be possible without you. Kerie, thank you for all that you do, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Curtis. I'm truly, truly happy to be here. And I hope all of your listeners have a blessed day. And you as well, Curtis. Thank you.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.